Hey guys, how's it going? So, as one of the oldest millennials, born in early 1981, I grew up with an Atari 2600 in my home. Although it originally belonged to my father, it was my first gaming system. And while the NES became the console I played the most during my childhood, the 2600 introduced me to the world of gaming. The Atari 2600, debuting in 1977, can be seen as a pioneer of modern gaming success, serving as a heartbreaking reminder of how economic downturns can impact even the strongest players. The 1983 crash was partly fueled by the influx of subpar games released for this console. Despite being far removed from its prime, the Atari 2600 boasts a collection of over 500 games that remain fundamental within their genres. It's easy to overlook these classics, but thankfully I'm old enough to make a list of the 20 best Atari 2600 games to appreciate, and of course to share with you and hopefully entertain. As always, this list has been compiled from my favorites, several articles, videos, and polls on the matter. If there is anything I left out or you have a different ranking, please let me know down in the comments. Actually, comment anything. It's really good for the algorithm, and it really benefits the channel. I'd appreciate it. Without further ado, let's get started. Number 20, Pong. How could I not start with this game? Atari Incorporated's inaugural game Pong stands as one of the most significant video games in history, marking the beginning of mainstream gaming popularity. This two-dimensional rendition of table tennis features two players who maneuver paddles to hit a ball into their opponent's area. Its concept is straightforward yet captivating. Pong has been endlessly replicated and can be found on nearly every device imaginable, including graphic calculators, making it a prime example of simplicity combined with addictive gameplay. Number 19, Asteroids. The Atari version may have transformed the sleek vector graphics into blocky pixels, yet it preserved the engaging gameplay of the original arcade experience. In contrast to other shooters of its time that restricted movement to a single plane, players could navigate their spaceship freely across the screen, aiming at destroying as many asteroids as they could while avoiding and firing at flying saucers. Its impact continues to resonate in modern gaming like Geometry Wars. Number 18, River Raid. This game was among the pioneers in procedurally generating the locations of enemies and various objects, which made memorizing a specific route nearly impossible, basically changing the game. Although it may not be the top game for the Atari 2600, it undeniably holds a crucial place in any collection. It is one of the stepping stones to greater programming for random enemy spawns. When asked about my favorite title for the 2600, I'm always going to respond, River Raid. Number 17, Spy Hunter. Another solid arcade port, the gameplay is divided into two main sections, land and water. Players take control of a car and then a boat in various acts, aiming to evade or eliminate enemy vehicles in pursuit. Additionally, it included a unique controller attachment that allowed two joysticks to be connected, enabling players to operate both the front and rear machine guns of the vehicle instantaneously. Number 16, Space Invaders. The Atari 2600 adaptation of the arcade classic demonstrated the console's ability to deliver a solid port and sparing a generation of gamers from spending countless quarters. You take command of the cannon positioned on the ground, firing upwards at waves of pixelated aliens that traverse the screen in formation, mirroring the rising tempo of the sound effects and your own heartbeat, until either all the aliens are defeated or you meet your demise. A classic. Number 15, Warlords. This was a great game to play when you had 4 controllers and you had all your buddies over. So basically, each player manages a shield that protects a wall of blocks in front of their knights. This fireball ricochets across the screen and players have to use their paddle controllers to deflect it towards their opponents. Your aim is to break the blocks shielding their knights. The round is over when only one knight remains, and it's the first to win 5 rounds that claims the victory. While the graphics aren't anything that's impressive, the gameplay that was delivered is truly remarkable. Number 14, Centipede. While the hardware constraints limited the graphic fidelity, the gameplay adapted remarkably well to the home consoles. This is another 2600 game that does not look great, some would even say for its time, but it played incredibly well. Players maneuvered a cannon horizontally, shooting up at the centipede as it navigated the path. Additional points are awarded for targeting other foes such as spiders and fleas. Number 13, Yar's Revenge. Now this game's allure lies in its challenging nature and the strategies that emerge from the diverse mechanics at play. The neutral zone in particular is frequently praised as a brilliant designer choice. So you're an intergalactic fly and your job is to defeat all the enemies. Now the cool thing, like I mentioned about this game, is the neutral zone. When you're in the neutral zone, you can't be harmed, but at the same time you can't fire at enemies, so there's a lot of strategy that comes into it. Number 12, Dig Dug. This was another game that was always in my console. So, Dig Dug, you're the role of the fearless gardener, I'm guessing named Dig Dug. Your job is to excavate the ground using your powerful air pump to eliminate as many pests on screen as you can. Plus, there's rocks positioned throughout the area that can be cleverly used to be dropped on these enemies. However, these rocks can fall on you, killing you as well. You know, I can still remember walking into Ames when I was a little kid and buying this game with my father. Number 11, Missile Command. Yet another title that started in the arcade, the 2600 version impressively stayed pretty true to the origins. You only have one missile base that could only fire 3 shots at a time, yet it retained much of the original experience, including the iconic screeching alarms and sounds, plus the background shifted colors as the waves progressed. The fast-paced action and constant movement made Missile Command a thrilling experience. Hell, it still holds up to today. Number 10, Combat. While the game may seem basic and plain, it offers a delightful experience primarily because of the tank levels. A version of Tank Pong can be played that's not only clever but also oddly charming. Shots ricochet off walls, and certain times you'll have to do that to win. Ultimately, it's Pong with tanks. It's one of the best 2-player games you can have in your game library. Plus, it didn't hurt that this was also a pack-in title with most 2600 consoles for about 4 years. Combat. Number 9, Jungle Hunt. This game featured a sequence of screens that you needed to navigate. As the character, you had to swing across a series of ropes, then cross a river teeming with crocodiles, and finally you had to dash beneath boulders and leap over giant rocks to reach the concluding screen. In the last screen, you just have to avoid being hit by the spearmen and you can rescue the girl. While the game may seem simple, there is a harder difficulty setting. Along with this and the simulated depth and vibrant colors, this makes Jungle Hunt a cartridge that is definitely worth hunting down and playing today. Number 8, Pitfall. This game's widely recognized as the pioneer of the side-scrolling platforming genre. It stands out as one of the most impactful titles for the 2600. In this expansive adventure, the players take on the role of Pitfall Harry, where you maneuver through the jungle dangers by swinging over crocodiles, jumping over scorpions, leaping across the iconic pits, and gathering treasure. And yes, that is a young Jack Black in the commercial.
Designed by David Crane for Activision.
Number 7, Q*bert. Another arcade port, Q*bert may have lost its distinctive isometric view, but it retained all of the addictive gameplay that established it as a classic. You control a long-snouted, armless orange creature as you hop around a pyramid aiming to touch every cube while dodging all the foes. If you do get hit by an enemy, Q*bert expresses his frustration with @ exclamation, pound signs, question marks, and we all knew this was Q*bert dropping the F-bomb. Q*bert's had a little bit of a comeback in the last decade as he was featured pretty prominently in Adam Sandler's Pixels.
Long ago.
Number 6, Joust. Why settle for horses when you can joust on a flying ostrich? Now, ostriches may not actually fly, but that's part of the charm, when you compete against other knights that are on buzzards gathering eggs and evading pterodactyls. The game emphasizes strategy as your character's elevation compared to the others decides who wins the clash, resulting in intense button mashing to make your ostrich flap its wings. It may not be entirely logical, but it certainly delivers on a lot of fun. Number 5, Pole Position. The arcade sensation quickly made its way to the 2600, delivering the same, well, kinda the same. Thrilling experience at home and fulfilled gamers' craving for speed, even in the absence of the steering wheel. Pole Position essentially laid the groundwork for the racing genre, setting many of the standards that are still prevalent in racing games today. While it did lack features like customizable vehicles and roadside grass, for those of us that grew up with the Atari, it was the ultimate driving experience. Number 4, Raiders of the Lost Ark. The game takes inspiration from the movie's storyline and involves a sequence of somewhat cryptic actions to successfully locate the Ark. Players must utilize both joysticks, one for navigating and the other for managing their inventory. To add to the challenge, specific events happen at unpredictable times throughout the game. Despite its challenging nature, Raiders of the Lost Ark offered a surprisingly diverse experience for the Atari 2600. The sheer challenge of this game, especially in the early 80s, is something to admire. Number 3, Frogger. A platforming game that tasks the players with guiding a frog across a busy road and turbulent waters to reach its home within a tight time frame. Utilizing only a 4-way controller without any buttons, the game presented a formidable challenge to the players. Its impact on pop culture was so significant, even making an appearance in a 1998 episode of Seinfeld, where George Costanza tried to maneuver the Frogger arcade across the street. Number 2, Miss Pac-Man. Although the Atari 2600 version of Pac-Man sold millions, it faced significant criticism for being a poor adaptation, missing many elements that contributed to the original success. In contrast, Miss Pac-Man, the pioneering female character in gaming, surpassed her counterpart in every aspect and provided an arcade-like experience at home, revitalizing the reputation of the Pac family franchise. Number 1, Adventure. Now, while it might seem overly simplistic by today's standards, after all, your character is just a square and the intimidating dragons you face off with just resemble ducks, Adventure was groundbreaking for its era. It effectively established the action-adventure genre, and it was among the first games to include an Easter egg. The game designer, Warren Robinette, cleverly concealed his name in a hidden room. Although it fell short in graphics, it made up for it in boundless creativity and adventure. And that's going to do it for my list of the 20 best Atari 2600 games. If there was a game you felt that should have been on this list, please let me know down in the comments. And again, I'm not the leading authority on 2600 games. I simply mentioned that I was born in the early 80s to illustrate the point that I mentioned these games because I have a fond recollection of them. To me, Atari 2600 is the epitome of nostalgia and retro. Thanks a lot for watching, guys. I really appreciate it. I'd also appreciate a thumbs up as well if you liked the video. Until next time, take care and I'll see you in about a week.